Hello, welcome to my house. I usually don't shoot videos here, but Lauren's gone, Braxton's gone. I got the whole place to myself, so today I'm filming it here. What I've got in front of me is a collection of some of my shoes. Not all these that I wear anymore. Biggest reason I'm gonna go through here in a minute. But what I want you guys to understand is most of the stuff you've been taught about shoes, what you should and shouldn't wear, probably is wrong. And I think it's really important that you understand why it's wrong and what you should be doing instead. Or if you continue to do it, what you need to be doing at home, outside of your shoes to make sure that you're not creating a lot of damage. So we're going to talk about what most people do with shoes, or what most people are after with their shoes, which is comfort. It's kind of like your pillow with your mattress at home. You've been told this story about the most comfortable, the softest, the most cloud-like is the best option when it comes to your mattress, your pillow, when it comes to your shoes. And that's complete and utter BS. Because, especially when it comes to your shoes, you need to have as much stimulation to your feet as possible, which is unfortunate. It's not sexy, I get that. It doesn't make for the most comfortable walk or ride, but ultimately our bodies weren't designed to be sitting in a cushioned coffin, if you will. The shoes that we wear today have a lot of different problems. Number one, they have these really thick soles. This pad here that separates the bottom of your foot from the ground is a big problem. Number two, they usually have a ramp, meaning they've got a thicker sole going down to a thinner toe. That's a problem. Number three, a lot of them have springboards. If you look at this shoe here, it's starting to elevate at the very end of the toe. That's a problem. And the last issue is when you look at the toe, instead of being wide all the way down, it starts to become much narrow when you get to the front. You can actually see this even more in a dress shoe. This narrow toe box, that's a problem. And I'm going to explain to you why as we go here. But let's start with what your foot's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be in contact with the floor of wherever you're at. And when we're kids, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, we were outside running around, playing in the grass, playing in the dirt, typically without shoes on, which was a great thing because you've got about 200,000 nerve endings in each sole of your foot. And those nerve endings are there for a reason. They're there to provide feedback to your brain. And that feedback allows your brain to have better sense about where it is in space. And it also allows the brain to work better. If you guys have been following me for any amount of time, which you have if you're watching this video, you understand that your spine creates a ton of nutrition for your brain, 80 to 90%. So when we've got a shift in your spine, yeah, that's pain sometimes. It might contribute to that, but bigger than that, it affects how your brain functions. Your brain doesn't get as much energy. It's not going to work as well, and that has drastic effects for the whole body. It means the heart, the lungs, your hormones, all those things that your brain controls, they're not going to work as well either. But your feet provide a lot of sensation and nutrition to your brain as well with all those nerve endings. So if we're not allowing them to do their job, guess what? Your brain's going to suffer. And you probably felt it yourself or definitely heard other people talk about how they like to just get their feet in the grass, in the sand, in the dirt. It just makes them feel good, more connected. There is legitimate research and science to back that up because when those nerve endings are in contact with the floor of the ground or getting stimulation, it helps your brain work better. It helps your mood, it helps your focus, it helps your body work better. And that's what I'm trying to do here in our office. We're trying to help that nervous system function to its highest capability. This is a big piece of that. So this big pad here breaks off those 200,000 nerve endings in each foot from the ground. They're not going to get that stimulation. Number two, this ramp that we see here. Now this doesn't have so much to do with your nervous system. It has more to do with the muscles in your body. But imagine, oops, I got too many shoes up here. Imagine this band is your Achilles tendon, which runs down the back of the calf to the back of your heel down here. If you've got a shoe on like this, where there's a big heel there, your Achilles tendon never gets to stretch out as far as it wants to, okay? When you do have no heel in your shoe, we call them zero drop shoes, which I'll show you here in a minute, that Achilles tendon gets to stretch out like it likes to. The Achilles tendon that never get all the way down, they're more prone to injury, more prone to problems. And if you've ever had an ACL or known someone who had an ACL rupture, if they're playing sports, a lot of times that's a career-ending injury. Regardless, it's one of the most painful experiences you can have, and it usually sidelines someone for at least a year, and they're typically never going to get back to 100%. And a lot of the problem is the shoes we wear. Unfortunately, I played basketball, and basketball shoes, I still have to this day seen any legitimate basketball shoes for the foot. And so you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't when you play basketball, because the only shoes you got are the ones that are going to put you in a bad position. Now that's part of the problem. Okay, the next part of the problem is these narrow toe boxes that you see, where the toe is starting to get narrow. Because what that does, your feet are designed to work like your hand. The toes are able to grab the floor of the ground and really propel you forward, which increases your strength, your speed, your agility, your brain function, everything. When they're squished together like they are in a toe box that's narrow, that really makes them work 100% less effective, which means your knee, your glutes, your legs, all those muscles that are doing the walking movement or the running motion, they're going to have to work way harder because your toes aren't able to propel you forward like they can when they're able to spread out. So that narrow toe box is a big problem. The last thing on this is the toe ramp, how it extends up. That is essentially a spring to propel you forward. We shouldn't need that spring, but because you lose a lot of that ability to grip the ground when you have a narrow toe box, your toes are what are going to help you propel forward. When you don't have that, we need this spring to help us go forward. We never get into full extension with our legs, which is where our leg straightens out and pushes behind us. We never get into that position because we have such a thick heel here, and so ultimately we are relegated to this spring-loaded shoe, which isn't ideal. Obviously, it's a crutch, and that's what I want you guys thinking about. This is the foot. This applies to everything in your life, and it's a philosophy that I try to use at all times, which is, am I just propping myself up? Am I using essentially a crutch to get through life, or am I making my body work, which ultimately makes it stronger? It's how you grow muscle. It's how you create better health in the body. So am I wearing something, using something like technology that's making me worse, or am I challenging my body to make myself better? Everything that you see in this shoe is making you worse because of the technology that has been designed. And unfortunately, this is way more dominant than it is missing when it comes to shoes. So that's the idea. Now, I'm going to rate these shoes that I've got here, okay, in terms of good or bad to great. Worst shoe, these dress shoes. And I'll just be perfectly transparent with you guys. I'm not 100% ideal in anything that I do, okay? I'm not perfect, and definitely not when it comes to shoes, because the big problem with this is I like style. I like to look good, and I haven't found shoes that look really good that are ideal in terms of for your foot. So I suffer in the short term when I'm at work, when I'm doing things in these shoes. But when I get home, I spend a lot of time rehabilitating my feet to make sure that they function optimally. When I was younger, playing college basketball, and into my early days in school before I knew all this information, I didn't do anything, and my feet were disgusting. My toes were starting to cross over each other. Just a lot of problems there, and things that I wasn't aware of. I didn't even realize how bad my feet were affecting me. Nowadays, because of my awareness and understanding of this, I spend a lot of time there, and my feet don't look like that. They're not as warped and disgusting, and they work a lot better. My body works a lot better because of it. Nonetheless, I still wear some of these shoes, and these are by far the worst. You probably have seen me in these in the office. The narrow toe box, terrible. Got a higher heel. It's not as bad as some, but you can see as it goes down to the front, it gets thinner. And then there's also this toe spring. So it's got just about everything I discussed earlier. It's not ideal. Important for you guys to understand. These are Cole Haan shoes, and they talk about how comfortable they are, which they are. But again, comfort isn't necessarily what we're after when it comes to our shoes. We want shoes that are minimal so that we can get as much stimulation from the ground. So food for thought. If you're wearing things like this, fine. I do it too. You've just got to make sure when you get home at night, you're doing things to rehabilitate your feet so that they continue to work like they should. Okay. I don't wear these shoes anymore. I try not to spend tons of time. If I'm not at work in dress shoes, I try not to spend too much time in shoes. That are terrible. But these are the other shoes I was showing earlier. Huge pad. Okay, disconnection from the ground is big time with these, and it slopes down into a much thinner toe area. There is a narrower toe box, just not ideal. The other thing that I didn't talk about too much was arch support. All these shoes have big arch supports, and you'll hear people talk about orthotics all the time. I'm not a big orthotic fan, and I'll explain why. I'm gonna use my trusty band again. Everyone should have a natural arch in the foot, and the arch helps to support, one, your body, takes pressure off of your knees and your hips. A lot of people that have knee pain, it's because they've lost the arch in their foot and just the natural cascade that places on the rest of the body. But if you've got the arch in your foot, what ends up happening, pretend my fingers here in the middle are the arch, what ends up happening is you give what we call your plantar fascia, we give it a little bit of slack, which is a good thing. When you don't have the arch, when that foot is flat, you stretch out the plantar fascia. So when people have plantar fasciitis, it's just because they're making this band really tight because they don't have any arch support. Why would you not have arch support? Because you wear shoes like I just showed you. The shoes create the crutch. And eventually, if your muscles aren't going to have to work, why do we need to worry about them? So your body just kind of lets that go. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's the idea, essentially. The arch just continues to degrade to the point where there is no more arch. And then we are forced to wear things like orthotics. So the orthotics create more of the problem, in my opinion. Actually, it's not my opinion. It's what the research shows. So I always tell people, use the orthotics if that's what you need for the moment. But when you're at home, you need to start to strengthen that muscle, which is your plantar fascia. If you don't, well, then problems are going to continue. And it's not just plantar fasciitis. Again, it's knee pain, it's hip pain, it's low back pain. Because as the feet lose their arch, they naturally actually round in towards each other. And when they round in, it creates a chain reaction up the spine. And so that's a big piece of it as well. Now, these shoes have no arch, which is good. Actually, I take that back. There's a slight arch in here. I'm looking at it. But what you'll see is the bottom, it's the thick pad. That's not ideal. But the good news about these are it's pretty much even all the way around. And there are shoes like this. They're, again, too thick of a pad, but much more even along the bottoms. There's also a wider toe box. It gets narrow, but it's at least wider than most. So in terms of bad to better, this is towards the better end of the spectrum. Now, these are by far the best. And so these are called Vivo Barefoot. And these are the shoes that I like to wear when I'm out and about. I don't particularly wear them in the office because they just aren't necessarily professional looking shoes, but what they have is a even bottom of the shoe, okay? There is no arch. If you bend, that's about as far as I can get, and that's not good for these shoes. These shoes are not very flexible, which keeps your foot from working like it should. These shoes, you can fold them up really easy. And it stimulates, or it essentially mimics how your foot works, which helps your brain and your body. The other thing is the toe box. The toe box is pretty thick all the way through. It allows your feet to grip the ground. And there's no toe spring in them. They're flat. So this essentially mimics normal human movement. And there's a bunch of different shoes out there. These aren't the only brand or the only type. but they're what I suggest because, or these types of shoes are what I suggest because of what I just mentioned earlier about the foot. Again, you're losing all the stimulation to your brain when you have a really thick sole. These still have a sole, so they're not as ideal as walking barefoot, but they're the best alternative I've found. Number two, the toe box affects how far you can get your leg into extension, which has repercussions for everything, especially your low back, your glutes, sciatica, pain, that sort of thing. That's going to be affected by your shoes. Number three, that thick sole on the bottom, that affects how much stimulation gets up to your brain and ultimately how poor your body functions or doesn't function. And then number four is this huge heel. The huge heel also affects how your body functions and increases your risk of pain, discomfort. So I hope you guys got something out of this video. There's a lot here. I don't talk a lot about shoes. I don't talk a lot about the feet, ultimately because I'm not a foot expert. I know what's going on. I wouldn't consider myself a foot expert, but I know how that affects our bodies. And I think it's an important piece. As you progress, I'm always looking to be healthier, and I hope you are too. Aside from the nervous system, aside from the food you eat, aside from the movement, how to move, sleep, all those things that we talk about on a regular basis, what you're wearing on your feet is an extremely important thing. Your feet are typically an afterthought, and I think what most people have been taught about their feet is wrong. So I'm hoping to clear some confusion up, and if you've got questions, by all means, you can email me. You can talk to me next time you're in the office. I hope you guys are finding these advanced webinars beneficial, and I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy.